Welcome to a quiet space where 1,000 stories are shared. My sister-in-law set a trap for me to sleep with a stranger. I turned the tables and sent her into the room instead. A few minutes later, my mother-in-law called the whole family to catch me in the act, only to witness the greatest drama of their lives. How that drama unfolded. I suppose I have to start with the fateful weekend dinner a few weeks ago. A dinner where the atmosphere was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Our spacious house in the suburbs of Chicago was always like that. Every Sunday evening, the whole family gathered, no exceptions. This was an unspoken rule my mother-in-law, Helen, had established the day I married her son. She'd say that a family needs order, that traditions must be upheld, and that dinner was a time for everyone to be together. I never had a reason to be absent. For 6 years, I was always the first one in the kitchen and the last to leave the table. That day, I had spent the entire afternoon preparing a lavish meal filled with all my in-laws' favorite dishes. Slow-braised short ribs for my father-in-law because he liked soft, easy-to-eat food. A perfectly roasted chicken with crispy golden brown skin for my husband, Mark. A kale and salmon salad for my sister-in-law, Jessica, because she claimed it was good for her complexion, and a classic shrimp cocktail with a tangy homemade sauce for my mother-in-law. I was busy in the kitchen, my shirt damp with sweat, but the thought of my family enjoying a happy meal made me feel like my efforts were worthwhile. I used to be that naive, until I realized that in their eyes, my hard work was nothing more than an expectation. The meal began. As usual, my father-in-law ate in silence, occasionally nodding along to the news on the large flat-screen TV. My husband was glued to his phone, scrolling through something and smirking to himself, the only sounds being the clinking of silverware and the steady voice of a sports commentator. I placed the most tender piece of short rib on my father-in-law's plate. He gave a slight nod, his eyes never leaving the screen. I turned and served a piece of the chicken thigh to my husband. He just mumbled a quick thanks, his thumb still swiping across his phone. My mother-in-law sampled a shrimp, chewing slowly, her brow furrowed like a harsh judge scoring a dish on a cooking show. Finally, she set down her fork and cleared her throat, a sound so sharp it made even Mark look up. "This cocktail sauce is a touch too sweet today, Clara. Too much sugar isn't good for people our age." I quickly replied, "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have had a heavy hand. I'll be more careful next time." I knew perfectly well that I had seasoned it carefully, exactly to her taste, but in 6 years, there hadn't been a single dish I cooked that she was completely satisfied with. If it wasn't too salty, it was too bland. If not bland, then too sweet. If not sweet, then it was missing something. At first, I was hurt and tried to explain myself, but I eventually understood the problem wasn't the food, but the cook. In her eyes, I could never be perfect. "You're looking a little worn out these days, Clara." Jessica's shrill voice cut through the tension. She scanned me from head to toe with a scrutinizing gaze. "Being an architect must be stressful. Maybe you should just quit and let Mark take care of you. What's the point of having a big career if it makes you old before your time?" She said it with a bright smile, as if she were genuinely concerned, but I knew that behind that smile was undisguised mockery and envy. Jessica was 4 years younger than me, had a degree from some second-rate college, and bounced from one dead-end job to another. She was jealous of me. I knew it. Jealous that I had a stable career as a lead architect at a prestigious firm. Jealous that I was financially independent and didn't have to ask my husband for money every month like she did. And perhaps she was even jealous of my husband, who, despite his spineless nature, always made a show of doting on me in public. I just smiled faintly. "Thanks for your concern, Jess. My work is busy, but I enjoy it. It's always better for a woman to have her own career." I deliberately emphasized the words "own career." Jessica's face twitched, but she quickly recovered her smile. She turned to her mother, whining, "See, Mom? Clara always has such a sharp comeback. I can never win an argument with her." Helen stroked her darling daughter's hair, her gaze towards me filled with hidden meaning. "Well, your sister-in-law is a brilliant woman. It's a blessing for this family to have such a talented daughter-in-law." It sounded like a compliment, but I knew the subtext. She was criticizing me for being too strong, for overshadowing her son. In her mind, no matter how successful a woman was, she should know her place and stand behind her husband. I had failed to do that. My husband, Mark finally put down his phone. He looked at me, then at his mother and sister, and forced a placating smile. "All right, everyone, let's just eat. I'm proud of my wife's success, Mom. It makes me look good." He said it as if he were doing me a favor. A coldness crept into my heart. In 6 years, he had never once defended me against the subtle digs from his mother and sister. He always chose silence or this kind of shallow placation. He was afraid of upsetting his mother, afraid of offending his sister. My feelings, it seemed, were less important than the fake peace of this family. The meal sank back into silence. I quietly finished my food, wishing only to clear the table and escape to my room, the only place in this house where I could find a sliver of peace. But just as I thought the torturous meal was about to end, Jessica spoke up again, her voice unusually excited. "Oh, that's right. I almost forgot." All eyes turned to her once more. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling with a strange, unreadable joy. "Clara, your birthday is next weekend, isn't it?" I was a little surprised. Even my own husband sometimes forgot my birthday, yet she remembered. Yes, it is." "I have an idea." Jessica clapped her hands together. "Next weekend, let's all take a trip to the Summit Resort and Spa up in the mountains. We can celebrate your birthday early. You've worked so hard all year. You deserve a break." Jessica's suggestion stunned me. Not just me, but Mark also looked surprised. A family resort trip, proposed by Jessica herself? This was unbelievable. Until now, she had never shown any genuine interest in me. Her gifts and well wishes were always perfunctory, often laced with sarcasm. "What a wonderful idea, dear." Helen was the first to endorse it. "It's been a while since we all went somewhere together." "Clara works hard. A little vacation would do her good." "Yeah, great idea." Mark chimed in, his face lighting up. "The fresh mountain air at the summit would be amazing. A weekend getaway is just what we need. I'll book the rooms right now." They chattered excitedly about the trip, about what they would do and what they would eat, as if I, the guest of honor for this supposed birthday celebration, didn't even exist. I sat there, forcing a smile, but a strange sense of unease bloomed in my chest. A cunning fox who never gave anything for free, a venomous snake always looking for a chance to strike. Why was she suddenly so kind? Was this trip really just a birthday gift? Or was there a conspiracy, a trap being set, just waiting for me to walk into it? If you're curious to know what I did to counter my sister-in-law's plot and how I turned the tables, making her entire family face humiliation, be sure to follow along for the next dramatic part of this story. The sense of unease followed me through the night, creeping into my dreams. The next morning, on my way to work, I couldn't hold it in any longer and called Maya, my one and only best friend. Maya is a sharp and incredibly perceptive lawyer. She's the only person I could confide in about the frustrations with my in-laws without fear of judgment. As soon as I recounted the previous night's dinner and Jessica's sudden proposal, Maya scoffed on the other end of the line. "Clara, you can't be that naive. Your sister-in-law, being nice enough to organize a resort trip for your birthday? I can smell a setup from a mile away." "I know it's weird," I sighed, my hand unconsciously tightening on the steering wheel. But both my mother-in-law and Mark were so enthusiastic. If I refuse, I'll be the difficult one who can't get along. The fact that they were so enthusiastic makes it even more suspicious, Maya analyzed, her tone growing serious. "Think about it. Your mother-in-law has never valued you. Your husband always sides with them. Why would they suddenly unite for your sake? There has to be a reason you don't know about. You need to be careful, Clara. I'm afraid this trip is more than just a vacation." Maya's words were like a bucket of cold water, making my vague suspicions crystal clear. My in-laws, especially Helen and Jessica, never did anything without a motive. Every action, every word was calculated. Helen wanted to control everything, from the household budget to her children's thoughts. And Jessica saw me as a rival, a thorn in her side that needed to be removed. The two of them working together could only mean a devious plan. "So what should I do?" I asked, my voice filled with confusion. "I can't back out now." "Mark already booked everything." "You don't back out. You go," Maya said confidently. But you're not going to relax, you're going to watch a play unfold. Pretend you don't suspect a thing. Act happy, excited. The more innocent you appear, the more careless they'll get. In the meantime, you need to be observant. Watch Jessica's every move, listen to her every word. She's bound to slip up. Gather everything you can, and if anything seems off, call me immediately. Talking to Maya helped me clear my head. She was right. I couldn't just passively wait for the trap to spring. I had to be proactive and find out what they were plotting. That evening, I returned home in a completely different state of mind. The anxiety was replaced by a heightened sense of alertness. As I prepared dinner, still making their favorite dishes, my mind was racing, analyzing the situation. Jessica came home earlier than usual. Instead of holing up in her room to watch movies, she lingered in the kitchen, pretending to help. "Here, Clara, let me wash the vegetables for you," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "The resort I booked is 5-star. It has a spa and a mineral mud bath. You can just relax and pamper yourself all weekend." I smiled, a smile I had practiced in the mirror. "Thank you so much, Jess. It's been so long since I've had a proper vacation. I'm so lucky to have such a thoughtful sister-in-law." I deliberately used polite, formal words to see her reaction. Jessica seemed very pleased. As she washed the lettuce, she bragged about the resort's luxurious amenities and how hard she had worked to get a reservation on a weekend. The more enthusiastic she acted, the more certain I was that something was wrong. While we were talking, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifted for a split second, and she quickly silenced it, shoving it into her pocket. "Who was that?" "Aren't you going to answer?" I asked casually. "Oh, it's nothing. Just a spam call," she replied, a little flustered, before quickly changing the subject. But I had already seen the name on the screen, a strangely saved contact, Asset 401. Why would you save a contact with a number, and why be so secretive about it? That small detail didn't escape me. I filed it away in my mind. That evening at dinner, Jessica and Helen couldn't stop talking about the trip. They discussed what outfits to wear and where to take pictures. Mark joined in enthusiastically. They created a fake atmosphere of warmth and happiness, trying to convince me that this was truly a gift for me. I played along, acting incredibly excited. But behind my smile, a different plan was beginning to form. After dinner, while Jessica was engrossed in a TV show, I snuck into her room. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't wait any longer. Her room was a mess, with clothes strewn everywhere. I quickly went to her laptop on the desk. Thankfully, it wasn't password protected. I opened it and checked the web browser history. She had cleared it, but I knew how to recover deleted data. A few minutes later, a list of recently visited sites appeared. Among the online shopping and streaming sites, one stood out: the website for the Summit Resort and Spa. Jessica had viewed the resort's floor plan over and over, especially the 4th floor, where the VIP suites were located. And then I found it. An email in her draft folder that she hadn't deleted yet. The subject line was Plan Confirmation. The body of the email was just a few short lines, but it sent a chill down my spine. "Everything's ready. Room 401, 10 p.m. Saturday. Bring the package on time. Bonus on completion." I took a picture of the screen with my phone, my heart pounding like a drum. Package, room 401, bonus. This was clearly a shady transaction, and there was no doubt who the package was. It was me. I quickly exited everything, covered my tracks, and tiptoed back to my room. My whole body was trembling, not from fear, but from rage. They actually dared to do this. They were going to turn me into a commodity, to destroy my reputation. My hands clenched into fists. Jessica, my mother-in-law, and even my spineless husband, they were all in on it. They thought I was a naive lamb they could easily lead to the slaughter. But they were wrong. This lamb was not as gentle as they thought. In this play, I wouldn't just be an actor. I would be the director, and I would ensure that the ending would be a tragedy for the very people who wrote it. I immediately sent the screenshot of the email to Maya. A few minutes later, she called back, her voice filled with anger and concern. "Oh my God, Clara! These people are monsters! Cancel the trip right now. This is too dangerous. No, I'm not canceling, I replied, my voice as cold as ice. If I cancel, they'll just come up with another scheme. This time, I'm seeing it through. I'm going to make them pay for what they've done. I knew from that moment there was no turning back. The real battle had begun. And I wondered, who was this asset 401, and what role did he play in this vicious plot? The fury I felt after reading the email on Jessica's laptop made it almost impossible to keep my composure. I wanted to storm into the living room, throw the evidence in their faces, and scream to the world about the true nature of this hypocritical family. But reason held me back. I knew if I caused a scene now, I would gain nothing but the label of a hysterical, paranoid wife. They would easily deny everything, claim the email was a joke, or worse, accuse me of fabricating the whole thing to destroy the family. No, I couldn't be so foolish. I needed more evidence, irrefutable proof. I needed to know their entire plan, from the identity of the stranger in room 401 to the specific role each of my in-laws played. Maya completely agreed. Exactly, Clara. Don't let your anger cloud your judgment. You have to be incredibly calm now. Keep pretending like you don't know anything. The happier you seem, the more they'll let their guard down. In the meantime, I'll help you dig up more information on that resort, specifically room 401. Over the next few days, I played a role that disgusted me. I acted incredibly excited about the trip. I pulled out all my clothes, asking Jessica for her opinion on what I should wear. I looked up local attractions online and chattered with Helen about what souvenirs to buy for relatives. My performance was so convincing that Jessica and Helen completely believed I had fallen into their trap. They looked at me with a mixture of pity and triumph, thinking their naive prey was about to walk right into the cage. Seeing me so cheerful, my husband, Mark, also seemed relieved. He stopped burying his face in his phone and started paying more attention to me. He asked if I needed sunscreen or if I wanted him to pack the camera. His fake concern made me want to vomit. I knew he was part of this conspiracy. He might not have been the mastermind, but his silence and complicity were an unforgivable crime. He was a coward, willing to sacrifice his wife to please his mother and sister. While I was playing my part, I was constantly searching for more clues. I knew Jessica and Helen wouldn't just communicate via email. They would have to talk, to discuss things in person. I didn't have to wait long. One afternoon, while I was pretending to nap in my room, I heard Helen and Jessica whispering in the living room. I peeked through the crack in the door. They were sitting close together on the sofa, their heads huddled, their expressions serious. I couldn't hear the entire conversation, but a few key phrases reached my ears, enough for me to piece things together. Make sure she's completely drunk. Helen's voice was laced with anxiety. Don't worry, Mom, Jessica replied confidently. I've got the strongest bottle of wine. 1 glass and she'll be out for the count. I've already briefed Trevor. He just needs to get her into the room and take a few pictures. When she wakes up the next morning, it'll be too late. She'll have no choice but to leave this house in shame. But what if she doesn't drink? Helen was still worried. Then I'll put something in her water, Jessica said, her voice chillingly cold. I have everything prepared. Don't worry, this plan can't fail. Once she's gone, I'll get Mark to pull some strings and get me her lead architect position. After this, no one in this house will ever look down on me again. My body went rigid. So that was Jessica's ultimate goal. She didn't just want to ruin my reputation, she wanted to steal the career I had worked so hard to build. Her jealousy and greed had turned her into a monster. And my mother-in-law, far from stopping her, was an active accomplice in her daughter's wicked scheme. They weren't human anymore. Shaking, I took out my phone and turned on the voice recorder. I had learned my lesson from Maya. Get evidence, no matter what. The recording wasn't perfectly clear, but it captured the key sentences. It would be one of my weapons. Their conversation ended. I heard Jessica's footsteps heading toward her room. I quickly shut my eyes, feigning a deep sleep. A few seconds later, my door creaked open. Jessica peeked in, probably to check if I was really asleep. Seeing me lying still, she let out a soft, triumphant chuckle and closed the door. That laugh haunted me all night. That evening, I got a text from Maya. Clara, I found it. The resort is the Summit Resort and Spa, a very famous 5-star place. Room 401 is one of their best VIP suites with a view of the valley. But here's the important part. I had a friend in the travel industry check. Room 401 wasn't booked by your husband or Jessica. It was booked under a fake name, John Smith, and was fully paid for in cash a week ago. John Smith. The name was completely anonymous. Exactly, Maya texted back, and my friend mentioned another detail. The man who booked it, this Smith, specifically requested that the room's balcony door connect to the adjacent room, 403. And you know who booked 403? Who? I asked, my heart racing. Your sister-in-law, Jessica. She booked room 403 at the same time as your and Mark's room. Everything suddenly became terrifyingly clear. Their plan was meticulously detailed. Jessica in 403, right next to the stranger's room, 401, with a connecting balcony. It meant they could move between the rooms without ever entering the hallway, leaving no trace on the security cameras. They had prepared the perfect path for their crime and the perfect escape route. Anything else, Maya? I asked. Yes. I sent the screenshot of that Asset 401 contact to a police detective friend of mine. He's going to try to run the number, but it might take some time. Thank you so much, Maya, I texted back, overwhelmed with gratitude. Without her, I would have been drowning in this mess alone. The deeper I dug, the more I realized the cruelty and sophistication of their plan. They didn't just want to harm me, they wanted to utterly destroy me, leaving me with no way to fight back. But they had underestimated me. I wasn't a helpless rabbit for them to slaughter. I was a wolf, a wounded wolf, patiently waiting for the right moment to strike back. And that moment was approaching. I began to formulate my own plan. I didn't just need proof. I needed a perfect strategy to turn the tables, to make their trap their own tomb. I looked at the calendar. Only 2 days until the fateful trip. 2 days to prepare for the biggest performance of my life. And I wondered about the identity of this Trevor. Who was he, and why would he agree to participate in such a disgusting game? The 2 days leading up to the trip passed in a state of extreme tension. On the surface, I was still the excited wife and sister-in-law, eagerly preparing for a birthday getaway. I went shopping with Jessica, even picking out a few dresses that were a little more alluring to reinforce her belief that I was looking forward to a romantic weekend. Jessica saw the dresses I chose, and a triumphant glint flashed in her eyes. She thought I was walking right into her snare, preparing myself to be the victim in her play. She had no idea that my every action was now part of a counteroffensive. Behind the fake excitement, Maya and I were working non-stop. We were racing against time to find the final, most crucial piece of the puzzle, the identity and motive of the stranger, Trevor. Maya mobilized her entire network, from friends in telecom to contacts she'd made through her legal cases. Finally, on Friday evening, just 1 day before we were set to leave, she called me, her voice urgent. Clara, I've got it. That Asset 401 guy, his real name is Trevor Hayes. Trevor, I said, my heart quickening. What do you know about him? You're not going to believe this, Maya said, her tone laced with irony. This guy isn't some hired thug or criminal. He's a well-known trust fund kid from Denver. Big family money, but he's a mess, nothing but partying and massive debts. Lately, he's been dating some rich girl, but apparently it's just to use her for her money. A spoiled brat, I said, surprised. Why would someone like that get involved in something so dirty? Where would Jessica get the money to hire him? It's not about the money, Clara, Maya said, her voice becoming cryptic. I had my contact dig deeper, and I found something explosive. Do you know who the rich girl Trevor has been dating is? Who? Your sister-in-law, Jessica. My world turned upside down. Trevor wasn't a hired hand. He was Jessica's boyfriend, her secret boyfriend that she had been hiding from the entire family. All the scattered pieces suddenly clicked into place, forming a complete and disgusting picture. I sank into a chair, my head spinning. So that was it. Jessica wasn't paying Trevor, she was using him. She had used their relationship to manipulate him, turning him into a tool for her scheme to destroy me. But why? I still don't get it, Maya, I said, completely bewildered. If Trevor is her boyfriend, why would she push him into a room with me? Isn't she afraid of losing him? She's not afraid of losing him because she was planning to dump him anyway, Maya analyzed, the sharpness of a lawyer evident in her every word. Think about it. A spoiled party boy drowning in debt like Trevor? There's no way your mother-in-law would ever approve of him. Jessica knows that. She was just using him for his money and his infatuation. This plan of hers is brilliant, in a twisted way. It kills two birds with one stone. She gets rid of you and gets the perfect excuse to break up with him. She'll play the victim, claiming Trevor betrayed her by sleeping with her own sister-in-law. She gets the family's sympathy and a clean break from a useless boyfriend. This girl isn't just cruel, Clara. She's diabolical. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat. Jessica's malevolence was beyond anything I could have imagined. She wasn't just jealous of me. She was willing to trample on the feelings of the man who supposedly loved her just to achieve her goals. She was a viper, ready to strike anyone who got in her way, even those closest to her. "What about Trevor?" I asked. "Is he so stupid that he doesn't realize he's being used?" "Probably not," Maya replied. "Love makes people blind." Or maybe Jessica promised him something, like a large sum of money after the job was done, enough to clear his debts. When you're that desperate, logic goes out the window. Everything was now perfectly clear. I understood the entire plot, the motive, the plan, and the role of each character. Jessica was the director, Helen was her accomplice, and Trevor was the manipulated lead actor. And my husband, Mark, he was the cowardly spectator who knew everything but chose to stay silent. I was supposed to be the victim, but now I would be the judge. "Clara, what are you going to do?" Maya asked, her voice filled with worry. "This plan is too dangerous. Trevor might be a spoiled kid, but he could be unpredictable. What if he gets violent?" "I have a plan," I replied, my voice now calm and cold. "I don't just want to expose them, I want them to fall into the very trap they set. I'm going to turn my birthday into the most horrifying night of their lives." I told Maya about my counterplan, my idea to turn their scheme back on them. It was bold and risky, but it was the only way I could completely turn the tables. Maya was silent for a long moment after I finished. I knew she was worried about me. "Are you sure about this, Clara?" she asked one more time. "I'm sure," I affirmed. "Maya, I have nothing left to lose. This marriage, this family, it's been rotten from the inside for years. If I don't get myself out, I'll drown in it. This time, I'm fighting not just for my honor, but for my freedom." Maya sighed. "Okay, if you're decided, I'll help you all the way. What do you need me to do?" "I need you to prepare a few things," I said, and began listing my requests. I needed a micro recorder, a burner phone with a new SIM card, and most importantly, I needed Maya to be near the resort that night, ready to act on my signal. "Let's treat this like a court case," I told her. "You're the lawyer, I'm the client, and together we're going to bring the guilty parties to justice." Maya laughed. "All right, my client, this is one case we are definitely going to win." After hanging up, I looked out the window. The night sky was pitch black, without a single star, but inside me, a fire was raging. Jessica, Trevor, Helen, Mark, all of you, go ahead and enjoy your final moments of triumph. Because tomorrow, when the curtain falls, you won't be the ones left laughing. I wondered if Trevor's foolishness was the only weak point in Jessica's plan, or if his blind devotion would become the double-edged sword that would destroy everything she had calculated. On Saturday morning, the day of the fateful trip, I woke up earlier than usual, not from excitement, but because a storm of emotions was churning inside me. After learning the whole truth the night before, I had barely slept. The images of Jessica's plot, Helen's complicity, Mark's cowardice, and Trevor's blindness replayed endlessly in my mind. But as the first rays of dawn broke, all that chaotic emotion was replaced by an unnerving calm. Today, I was no longer Clara, the submissive wife, the tolerant sister-in-law. Today, I was an actress, preparing for the most important role of my life. I chose a pure white sundress and applied light, natural makeup to project an image of innocence. I wanted them to see me today as the perfect little lamb, happily trotting toward the slaughterhouse. The more they believed it, the more careless they would be, and the more easily they would fall into the trap I had set. When I came downstairs, the whole family was already waiting. Jessica was in a flashy red dress, her makeup heavy, her eyes gleaming with confidence and triumph. She looked me up and down and smirked. "Wow, Clara, you look gorgeous today, like a goddess." I smiled back. "Thanks, Jess. It's my birthday celebration after all. Have to look the part." Helen nodded in approval. "That's right. You should dress up and enjoy yourself on vacation. Staying cooped up at home all the time will make anyone sick." She said it as if she genuinely cared about my well-being. My husband, Mark, came over and put his arm around my shoulder affectionately. "My wife is the most beautiful woman here. I'll take lots of amazing pictures of you when we get there." He played the role of the loving husband perfectly. The three of them, a happy family, taking me to my own execution. A wave of disgust rose within me, but I quickly suppressed it. I leaned my head on my husband's shoulder and said in a sweet voice, "Really, honey? You promise?" The luxury SUV started its journey toward the mountains. Throughout the drive, Jessica kept the mood lively. She played music, told jokes, and tried to create a fun, relaxed atmosphere. She had also brought a bottle of red wine and some glasses. "I brought some wine so we can get the party started on the way," she said. "This is a really good vintage. I had to order it a week in advance." She poured a glass and handed it to me. "Here, Clara. Happy birthday. To you being more beautiful every year." I knew there was something wrong with this wine. Maybe she hadn't drugged it yet, but it was certainly a strong vintage. Her goal was to get me drunk right from the start. I smiled and accepted the glass. "Thank you, Jess. You're so thoughtful." I brought the glass to my lips, took a tiny sip, and then started coughing dramatically. "Oh, wow, this is too strong for me. I can't drink this," I said, wrinkling my nose. Jessica looked slightly disappointed but quickly recovered. "Oh, well, I can mix it with some soda for you." "No, that's okay." I waved my hand. "I'll just have some water. I want to save my appetite for the cocktails at the resort. I heard the bartenders there are amazing." I declined gracefully, giving her no room to insist. Jessica could do nothing but put the wine away. I saw a flicker of frustration on her face, and I knew I had won the first round. The car pulled up to the grand entrance of the Summit Resort and Spa. Its luxury and scale were beyond what I had imagined. The crisp, cool mountain air was refreshing. While Mark and Jessica checked in, Helen and I sat in the lobby. I pretended to be tired, leaning back in a plush armchair with my eyes closed. In reality, I was silently observing my surroundings and activating the micro-recorder Maya had given me. It was disguised as a small, decorative hair clip, almost impossible to detect. From this moment on, their every word would be recorded. "Are you tired, Clara?" Helen asked, her voice feigning concern. "Yes, a little carsick, Helen." "Well, you should get some rest once we get to the room. We're having dinner at the restaurant on the summit tonight. Jessica booked a table with a beautiful view." She said it with such pride in her darling daughter. A few minutes later, Mark and Jessica returned with the key cards. "All set. Mom and Dad are in 402, our room is 404, and Jessica is in 403, Mark said, handing me a key card. "Right next to Trevor's room, 401. Everything was according to their plan. I took the key card and smiled. "Great. Let's go up and rest for a bit, honey. I'm feeling a little tired." We went up to our room. It was spacious and elegant, with a balcony that looked out over the misty valley. The view was beautiful, peaceful, but I knew a storm was about to break. After dropping off his bags, Mark said, "You get some rest, okay? I'm going to check on Jessica, see if she needs help with anything." He was finding an excuse to go and confer with her, likely to review their plan. "Okay, you go ahead," I replied obediently. The moment he left, I locked the door. I didn't rest. I started to act. I took out the burner phone Maya had prepared. The only contact in it was hers. I sent a pre-written text. "Plan in motion. I'm in room 404. All clear so far." Then, I went out to the balcony. Our balcony and Jessica's, room 403, were separated only by a low partition. I could easily see Mark and Jessica talking on their balcony. They were whispering, but I had my recorder. I pretended to admire the view, taking pictures with my phone, but I was actually trying to record their conversation. I caught a few words: wine, the pill, 10 o'clock, Trevor. It all matched what I already knew. After they finished their discussion, Mark came back to our room. He looked at me with a hint of guilt in his eyes, but he quickly masked it. "Jessica's fine. She's just getting her stuff ready to go for a swim later." "Oh, really?" I smiled. "Maybe we should go for a swim too, honey." "I'd love to." I deliberately suggested it to see his reaction. "No, you're tired. Just rest. We have dinner plans tonight." He refused immediately. He was afraid of me leaving the room, afraid their plan would be disrupted. I didn't argue, just nodded. I lay down on the bed and pretended to sleep. Mark sat at the desk and opened his laptop, but I knew he wasn't working. He was waiting, just like me, waiting for night to fall. The night that would conceal a crime, but would also bring the truth to light. I wondered if Trevor, the man in room 401, was really so foolish as to not realize he was just a pawn, or did he have his own agenda? A secret that even Jessica didn't know about. Night fell slowly over the valley, bringing with it a chill in the air and a profound quiet. Our family dinner was held at a luxurious restaurant at the very top of the mountain. Just as Helen had said, the view of the resort glittering with lights below was breathtaking. The romantic setting, the delicious food, the fine wine, everything was perfect for a birthday celebration. But for me, this was just a stage, and I was the lead in a horror play. Jessica was especially attentive tonight. She kept putting food on my plate and refilling my glass. "Clara, you have to try the steak. It's their specialty." "Clara, have some more wine. It's a light red. It'll warm you up." She played the role of the caring sister-in-law flawlessly. But I knew that in that glass of ruby red wine, in those artfully presented dishes, danger was lurking. I couldn't refuse outright. That would arouse their suspicion. I had to be more clever. "Thank you, Jess," I smiled, accepting the glass of wine. "But you know, I've been feeling a little unwell since this afternoon. I think the change in altitude is getting to me. My doctor actually told me to avoid alcohol for a while. I hope you understand." I invented a perfectly plausible excuse. I knew Jessica wouldn't dare force me to drink if I brought up my health. As expected, she looked a bit flustered, but quickly recovered. "Oh, of course. Don't drink it then. Your health is the most important thing. Let me get you some juice instead." "A glass of orange juice would be great," I said. I knew that even the juice could be drugged. But I was prepared. Before the trip, Maya had given me a few detoxifying pills and a colorless, odorless powder that could neutralize common sleeping agents. I had secretly transferred the powder into an empty eye drop bottle for easy use. While Jessica was flagging down a waiter, I pretended to check my phone, using my other hand to quickly squeeze a few drops of the powder into my own glass of water. The orange juice arrived. Jessica herself placed it in front of me. "Here you go, Clara. Drink up. It'll make you feel better." I smiled and thanked her but didn't drink it right away. I waited for a moment when everyone was distracted by conversation, then I pretended to drop my napkin. As I bent down to pick it up, I swiftly swapped my orange juice with the glass of water that now contained the neutralizing powder. The whole maneuver took seconds. No one noticed. I picked up the orange juice and took a large gulp. "This is delicious." "Thanks, Jess," I said, looking directly at her. I saw a flash of glee in her eyes. She thought I had fallen for it. Dinner ended, and we headed back to our rooms. On the way, I began to feign the symptoms of being drugged. I stumbled, acting dizzy and disoriented. "Oh, wow. I feel so lightheaded," I mumbled, leaning on Mark's arm. Mark quickly supported me, his face a mask of fake concern. "What's wrong? Are you feeling okay?" "I think so. I just need to get back to the room and lie down," I said in a weak voice. Jessica, walking beside us, glanced at me, the corner of her mouth twitching into a barely suppressed smile. "Let me help you back to your room, Clara," she said, all feigned urgency. By the time we reached the door of room 404, I was pretending to be nearly unconscious. I slumped against Jessica, my eyes closed. "Oh no, she's passed out. Quick, we have to get her inside." Jessica quickly fumbled in my purse for the key card, swiped it, and the door clicked open. Just then, I suddenly opened my eyes and grabbed her arm. "Jess," I slurred. I think I left my essential oil roller in your bathroom. Room 403. My head hurts so much. Can you get it for me?" My counterplan began. I knew she wouldn't refuse. In her eyes, I was helpless prey. She needed to get me into the room quickly to complete her plan. Okay. Just wait here a second," Jessica replied, not a hint of suspicion in her voice. She pulled out her own keycard for 403, ready to open her door, but I held her arm tight. "No, not that one," I said, pointing toward room 401. I remember wrong. It was the room next door, the one with the big bougainvillea planter. I had carefully noted that Trevor's room, 401, had a large, distinctive planter outside. Jessica looked at room 401, then back at me, hesitating for a moment. "But that's not my room." My head, it hurt so much, I moaned, clutching my forehead. "Please, Jess, just get it for me. Maybe the hotel staff made a mistake with the rooms. Your key should work." I deliberately said things that made no sense, playing on her arrogance. I knew her only thought was to get me into a room, any room, so she could call Trevor. She wouldn't be thinking clearly. As I predicted, Jessica nodded. "All right, fine, just lean on me. I'll be right back." She took her key card and walked toward room 401. I held my breath. This was the decisive moment. Jessica swiped her card. The lock didn't budge. "It's not working, Clara," she called back. Let me try," I said, pretending to stumble forward. But I knew Trevor was inside, waiting for his cue. As planned, he would unlatch the door from the inside. Just as I predicted, the door to room 401 clicked and opened a crack. Without a second thought, Jessica pushed it open and stepped inside. "Where did you leave the oil?" she called out. There was no answer, only the sound of the door slamming shut behind her. A heavy thud echoed in the hallway. The door had automatically locked from the inside. I stood up straight, all traces of weakness and fatigue gone. My husband and my mother-in-law were still downstairs, laughing, completely oblivious to what was about to happen. I stared at the closed door of room 401. Inside, the real drama was just beginning. Jessica had walked right into the trap she had set for me. I smiled, a cold, chilling smile. My performance wasn't over. The best act was yet to come. I knew Trevor wasn't a complete fool. He had agreed to help me not just because I promised him far more money than Jessica ever could, but for another reason, a secret I had discovered at the last minute. A secret about his and Jessica's past. A secret that would make tonight's drama all the more explosive. I wondered if Jessica knew that the man she was using understood her true nature better than anyone, and that he had been waiting for this opportunity for a very, very long time. I went back downstairs, and my mother-in-law and husband stared at me, their eyes wide with shock. Mark was frozen to the spot, his expression shifting from surprise to horror. He stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. You're awake? Clara, where's Jessica? She was with you." His trembling voice, the panicked look of a cornered accomplice, it only filled me with contempt. Even now, he was still pretending to be clueless. "Jessica?" I laughed, a sharp sound that I knew was twisting a knife in his gut. "Isn't she with Asset 401, the business partner your mother and sister so carefully arranged to entertain me? Why do you look so surprised?" Every word I spoke was a dagger aimed at his facade. The color drained from his face, and sweat beaded on his forehead. I don't know what you're talking about. You don't need to know," I cut him off, my voice like ice. "You just need to stand here and wait for the show. The grand play your whole family worked so hard to produce. The only thing is, the lead actress has been recast tonight." With that, I didn't spare him another glance. I turned and walked calmly toward the elevator, leaving him rooted to the spot in the silent hallway. I knew his mind was a chaotic mess. He couldn't understand how I knew everything, why Jessica was in that room, or how I could be so composed, but I had no time to explain. My production had more important scenes to stage. I went down to the main lobby. The atmosphere was still lively, with soft music and the cheerful chatter of guests. I walked straight to the front desk, my face a mask of panic and distress. "Excuse me, please, have you seen my sister-in-law?" I asked the receptionist, my voice trembling. "Her name is Jessica. She was wearing a red dress. She said she was just going to the restroom, but I've been waiting forever, and she's not back. I can't reach her on her phone. I'm so worried." The receptionist looked at me with concern. "Ma'am, the resort is very large. I'm afraid I wouldn't have noticed everyone. Have you tried checking by the pool or the bar?" "I've looked everywhere," I said, my voice breaking as if I were about to cry. "She's not a heavy drinker, but she had some wine at dinner. I'm scared she might have gotten dizzy and wandered off somewhere dangerous. Can you please have someone help me look for her?" I played the part of the worried sister-in-law to perfection. My frantic expression and trembling voice completely convinced the staff. She immediately picked up her radio to call security. "Security, this is the front desk. We have a guest reporting a missing person, a young woman in a red dress, possibly intoxicated. Please have your team patrol all common areas, especially around the pool and the quiet hallways." The search for the missing person had officially begun. I collapsed onto a sofa in the lobby, burying my face in my hands, pretending to sob. A few guests walked by, looking at me curiously. Some even came over to ask if I was all right. I just shook my head, mumbling, "My sister-in-law is missing. I'm so scared." The news spread quickly. A young woman in a red dress, drunk and missing in a 5-star luxury resort. It was a juicy piece of gossip that immediately captured everyone's attention. The cheerful atmosphere in the lobby began to sour as people started whispering. I knew I was creating the perfect smokescreen, a chaotic backdrop to conceal my next move. Everything was going according to plan. I needed witnesses. I needed the attention of the resort management so that when the truth came out, they couldn't possibly cover it up or blame me. About 15 minutes later, my mother-in-law, Helen, emerged from the restaurant area. She had probably been waiting for me and Jessica and had come looking for us. The moment she saw me crying, she rushed over. "Clara, what's wrong? Where is Jessica?" "Helen." I looked up, tears streaming down my face. "Jessica, she's missing. I can't find her anywhere." "Missing?" Helen froze, her face turning pale. "How can she be missing? She was just with you." "I don't know. She said she was going to the restroom and then she never came back," I wailed, playing the victim. "I've already asked security to search for her." Helen began to panic for real. She wasn't afraid for Jessica's safety. She was afraid her plan had been derailed. She quickly pulled out her phone to call Jessica, but of course, the call wouldn't go through. Inside room 401, Trevor had followed my instructions and turned off Jessica's phone the moment she entered. "I can't reach her," Helen said, her voice trembling. "Oh God, that girl. Where could she have gone?" Just then, Mark came running down from the upper floor, looking like he'd seen a ghost, his face ashen. "Mom, Clara, something's happened," he panted. "I can't find Jessica anywhere." "You're just telling us now?" Helen snapped at her son. "Your wife has been sitting here crying her eyes out. Where have you been?" She had no idea that her precious son had just endured the most terrifying 15 minutes of his life. He had stood outside room 401, hearing things he shouldn't have heard, and realizing his sister had truly fallen into a trap. Too terrified to do anything, his only thought was to run and find his mother. The three of us, each with our own agenda, performed a scene of a worried family searching for a loved one in the middle of the resort lobby. All eyes were on us. The resort manager had now appeared. He came over to inquire about the situation, reassured us, and said he had dispatched all available security personnel to search the grounds. I knew the time was ripe. I stood up, wiped my tears, and looked directly at Helen. "Helen, I just remembered something." "What is it?" she asked impatiently. "On the way back to the room earlier, Jessica mentioned she had left her lipstick in a friend's room. She said the room was on the 4th floor. Do you think she went back to get it and maybe fell asleep there?" I deliberately offered a plausible-sounding theory. Helen grabbed onto it like a lifeline. "Which friend? Which room? Do you know?" "I'm not sure," I said. "She just mentioned it was room 401. I said the number casually. As the words left my mouth, I saw Mark's face go sheet white. He stared at me in disbelief. He understood everything now. 401. "All right, let's go up there and check," Helen said, without a shred of doubt. She thought this was just an unexpected complication, but one that was still manageable. She never imagined she was about to lead her family to witness a drama of her own making. But we don't have a key card. How can we get in?" Mark stammered, trying to stop them. "That's no problem," the manager interjected. "Given the emergency, we can use a master key to open the door. Please, follow me." The final trap was set. The prey was walking into it willingly. I followed behind them, a faint smile on my lips that no one could see. I wondered what Helen's expression would be when the door to 401 opened. Would she maintain her dignified, aristocratic composure? And my husband, what would he do to save the situation? Or would he continue to be a coward and watch everything fall apart? Our procession, led by the resort manager and 2 security guards, moved purposefully toward the elevator. Helen walked right behind them, her face grim but still composed. She likely thought this was just a small hiccup in her perfect plan. Maybe Jessica had accidentally had the drugged drink, or maybe she had gone to room 401 to meet Trevor on her own accord. In her mind, the situation was still under control. All they had to do was open the door, get Jessica out, and everything would be quietly resolved. She had no idea she was walking into a completely different play, one where she was not the director. My husband, Mark, trailed at the very end. He didn't dare look at me, his gaze fixed on the floor. Occasionally, he would glance up at me with a complex expression, a mixture of fear, resentment, and something that looked like pleading. He knew everything, but he didn't have the courage to speak. That coward chose silence, even now. As for me, I walked beside Helen, occasionally dabbing my eyes with a handkerchief. I was the perfect image of a gentle daughter-in-law, worried sick about her missing sister-in-law. My grief-stricken performance was flawless. The elevator stopped on the 4th floor. The long, quiet hallway was lined with plush carpeting and lit by warm, yellow lamps that cast our long shadows on the walls. The air grew thick with tension. We stopped in front of room 401, the room with the vibrant bougainvillea planter. Now, it looked like the gates of hell, waiting to swallow the guilty. The manager turned to Helen to confirm one last time. "Ma'am, are you certain your family member might be in this room?" "Just open the door," Helen commanded, her voice firm. "My daughter can be impulsive. She probably came to find her friend and fell asleep. We'll know as soon as you open it." She was still so confident. The manager nodded and took out a black master key. He swiped it. A sharp beep cut through the silence, and the door clicked open. But before the manager could push the door, Helen shoved him aside and barged in first. She wanted to be the first to witness the scene, the first to catch the daughter-in-law she despised in the act. "Jessica, are you in here?" she called out, but there was no reply. The room was dark, with only a little light spilling in from the hallway. Helen fumbled for the light switch. Mark and I followed her in. And then, the lights flickered on. All of us, including the security guards and the manager, froze at the sight before us. The room was neat and tidy. There were no signs of a party, no empty bottles, no loud music. On the large white bed lay 2 people, but it wasn't me and a strange man. The woman on the bed, her hair disheveled and clothes in disarray, was Jessica, and the man lying next to her, with his arm around her, was none other than Trevor Hayes. Trevor was awake. He sat up in bed, looking slightly groggy but with a defiant smirk on his face. He looked at our stunned group and chuckled. "Well, look at this. Are we having a party?" he drawled. Helen stood as if she had been turned to stone, her eyes wide, her mouth agape. She pointed a trembling finger at Jessica, then at Trevor, her whole body shaking. You too. How could you?" She couldn't finish the sentence. The shock was too great, too sudden. It completely shattered her confidence and her carefully constructed facade of dignity. Mark collapsed onto the floor, holding his head in his hands. "Oh my God," he moaned. "How did this happen?" He might have imagined this scene, but seeing it in reality was more than he could bear. And me? I stood at the doorway, arms crossed, silently watching this tragicomedy unfold. I saw the vacant look on Helen's face, the utter collapse of my husband, and the triumphant smirk on Trevor's. Everything was proceeding exactly according to my plan. But I knew this was just the beginning. The elaborate deception had succeeded, but to end this play, I needed to deliver the final, decisive blow. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. I looked directly at Helen, my voice chillingly calm. "Mother-in-law, are you surprised? You called the whole family here to catch your daughter-in-law cheating, but it seems you've found the wrong woman." My words were like a bucket of ice water thrown on her panic. She looked up at me, her eyes no longer filled with contempt, but with fear. What did you do?" she stammered. "I didn't do anything." I smiled. "I just helped your precious daughter and her boyfriend find a private space to talk. You should be thanking me." Just then, Jessica began to stir. She opened her eyes, looking around in a daze. When she saw her entire family standing in the room and Trevor sitting beside her, she let out a piercing scream. "Ah! What's going on?" She frantically pulled the covers up to her chin, her face a mask of pure terror. She looked at me with eyes full of hatred. "It was you! You did this to me!" I burst out laughing, a sound filled with scorn. "Jessica, don't you dare try to blame me. You should ask yourself, who was planning to harm whom? Who prepared the strong wine? Who was going to drug the drink? Who set this entire trap to destroy their own sister-in-law?" Every question I asked was like a hammer blow to her lies. Jessica's face went pale. She couldn't deny it. All her secrets were exposed. Her play was a complete failure. But I wondered, was the truth I had just discovered about Trevor, about his real relationship with Jessica, the whole story? Or, behind the facade of a spoiled playboy, was Trevor hiding another secret, something even darker, a secret that could drag this entire family down into the depths of humiliation? Jessica's panic and Helen's stunned silence were the clearest confession. The resort manager, a polished middle-aged man, quickly regained his professionalism after the initial shock. He signaled for the 2 security guards to block the doorway, then turned to us, his voice firm. "My apologies for the intrusion, but as this incident has occurred on our property and appears to be a complex matter, we need to clarify the situation. I expect your full cooperation." His message was clear. He would not let this scandal tarnish his resort's reputation. He needed an explanation and wouldn't allow my family to simply sweep it under the rug. This was exactly what I wanted. I needed a third party, an authority figure, to witness everything. Of course, I was the first to speak. "We would also like to clarify why my sister-in-law is in a room with a strange man, and why my entire family stormed in here to accuse me of infidelity while I was in the lobby, worried sick, trying to find her." I deliberately highlighted the contradictions, directing the manager's suspicion toward my in-laws. Helen seemed to have recovered from her shock. She shot me a death glare before turning to the manager, attempting to summon her usual condescending tone. "This is all just a misunderstanding, sir. My daughter and this young man are friends. They must have had too much to drink, and things got out of hand. It's nothing serious. She was trying to frame a conspiracy as an accident. But Trevor, still sitting on the bed, wasn't going to let her off that easily. He let out a scornful laugh. "Friends? That's a good one. Jessica and I are more than friends. We're in a relationship." Trevor's statement was a second bombshell. Mark, still on the floor, snapped his head up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What did you say?" "Jessica, is he really your boyfriend?" Jessica didn't answer, just buried her face in her knees and sobbed. Her silence was her answer. Helen was speechless. She may have known about the relationship, but she never expected Trevor to announce it so publicly, especially not now. "So what if they're dating?" she snapped, trying to salvage the situation. "If you're in a relationship, you can discuss it at home. Why do you have to sneak into a hotel and bring shame upon this family?" "Shame upon the family?" Trevor laughed again. "Ma'am, we're not the ones bringing shame. You should ask your darling daughter what she asked me to do. Ask her what she promised me if I helped her frame her own sister-in-law." Trevor was laying his cards on the table. He was no longer an obedient pawn. He was turning on his master. Hearing this, Jessica looked up and screamed at him. "You! Shut up! What nonsense are you spouting? I never asked you to do anything." "Oh, denying it now?" Trevor smirked. He reached under the pillow and pulled out a smartphone. Good thing I was prepared. I recorded all of our conversations. Would you like to hear them? To hear how you detailed your plan to get your sister-in-law drunk, drug her, and then push her into this room for me? The phone in Trevor's hand was the final, devastating blow. Helen and Jessica stared at it as if it were a venomous snake, the blood draining from their faces. They never imagined that the pawn they thought they could so easily control was a far more cunning wolf. This was the secret I had discovered about Trevor. He wasn't some love-struck fool. He was a shrewd operator. He knew Jessica was just using him and had no intention of being discarded so callously. So, he had secretly gathered evidence to protect himself. When I contacted him and proposed we work together, he agreed instantly. My plan served his purposes perfectly. He would get paid, and he would get his revenge on Jessica. It was a perfect deal. You recorded my daughter? Helen lunged at Trevor, trying to snatch the phone, but the security guards quickly restrained her. Ma'am, please remain calm, the manager said sternly. Mr. Hayes, would you mind playing that recording for us? We need to know the truth. Trevor nodded. He pressed play. The room fell silent. Jessica's shrill, cruel voice filled the air. Don't worry, I have the pills ready. As soon as she drinks it, she'll be out cold. Then you just go into the room, take off her clothes, and snap a few intimate-looking photos. The next morning, when my mom and the family show up, it'll be a done deal. She'll have no choice but to leave this house in disgrace. The recording continued, filled with even more horrific details and meticulous planning. The longer it played, the paler Helen's face became. Mark sat motionless, his eyes empty. When the recording ended, nobody spoke. The truth was undeniable. The manager looked at my in-laws with a mixture of disgust and anger. Sir, ma'am, this matter has gone far beyond a family misunderstanding. This has the signs of a criminal act. We have no choice but to report this to the police. Report to the police. Those 4 words were a death sentence for their family. Helen swayed and collapsed onto the floor in a dead faint. Jessica descended into hysterical screaming, cursing Trevor one moment and begging the manager the next. Mark just sat there, trembling, useless. The trap had been sprung. The foxes were caught in their own snare. But I knew it wasn't over. The curtain had fallen on their play, but the consequences were just beginning. I wondered, after all this, which side my husband would choose. Would he continue to be a coward, trying to cover up his family's crimes, or would he find the courage to face the truth and offer an apology? The police arrived quickly, turning a family scandal into a full-blown criminal investigation that drew the attention of the entire resort. The 4th-floor hallway was crowded with curious guests, whispering and craning their necks to see inside room 401, the stage for a drama not listed on their luxury vacation itinerary. After receiving medical attention, Helen revived, but the fight was gone from her. She sat huddled in a chair, staring blankly into space. The shock and humiliation had completely broken the woman who had always seen herself as the center of the universe. Jessica was escorted away in a state of hysteria, muttering incoherently. Trevor, as the key witness who provided the evidence, was also taken to the station to give a statement. Before he left, he caught my eye and gave me a quick wink. I gave a subtle nod in return. Our deal was complete. My husband and I were also asked to go to the station to give our accounts. During the entire ride, we didn't exchange a single word. Mark sat beside me like a statue, staring straight ahead. I didn't know what he was thinking, regret, shame, or maybe hatred for me for destroying everything. Whatever it was, I no longer cared. At the police station, I recounted the entire series of events logically and clearly, from the fateful dinner to my counterplot. I provided them with the recording of Helen and Jessica's conversation and the other evidence Maya had helped me gather. Everything pointed against them. When it was Mark's turn, he simply bowed his head and confessed. He admitted he knew about his mother's and sister's plan beforehand, but chose to remain silent out of fear and a desire to avoid family conflict. He also admitted that the affection he had shown me in the days leading up to the trip was all part of the act. Fear? The investigating officer, a weary-looking man, looked at him with contempt. You were afraid of your mother and sister, but you weren't afraid of hurting the woman who has been your wife for 6 years? Do you realize that your silence, your complicity, is also a crime? Mark didn't answer, just lowered his head to the table, his shoulders shaking. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry, but these belated tears meant nothing to me anymore. We were released after completing our statements. It was late. The resort was quiet, but I knew that by morning, the story of my family would be the hottest topic of conversation. We returned to room 404, the room that was meant to be the stage for my tragedy, now feeling cold and alien. "Clara," Mark began, his voice hoarse. "Don't say anything," I interrupted. "I don't want to hear it. I'm exhausted." I went into the bathroom and turned the shower on full blast, trying to wash away the filth of the day. When I came out, Mark was still sitting on the edge of the bed in the same position. He looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know it's useless to say it now, but I am truly sorry. I was wrong from the very beginning. I was too weak, too cowardly. I didn't deserve your love." "You're right," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "You didn't." I took a folded document from my suitcase and placed it on the desk. "These are the divorce papers. I've already signed them. Read them and sign. I don't want any of our shared assets. The house, the car, you can keep them. I just want my freedom." Mark looked at the papers, then back at me, his eyes filled with pain and desperation. "Clara, can't you give me one more chance, one last chance to make it right?" "A chance?" I laughed, a bitter sound. "For the past 6 years, how many chances did I give you? Every time your mother and sister insulted me, I looked to you, hoping you would say just one word in my defense. But what did you do? You stayed silent. Every time I felt lonely and exhausted in my own home, I wished for a shoulder to lean on. But where were you? You were busy with your friends, busy being a dutiful son and a good brother. Did you ever give me a chance? Mark, you killed my love and my trust with your own hands. What kind of chance are you asking for now?" My words were like daggers, and he couldn't deflect any of them. He just sat there, tears streaming down his face. I no longer felt triumphant, just an overwhelming emptiness. This marriage was well and truly over. That night, we slept in separate rooms. Lying in a strange bed, I stared out the window at the clear, star-filled mountain sky. I realized it had been a long, long time since I had a moment of peace to simply look at the sky. I had been too busy trying to be a good wife and a dutiful daughter-in-law to remember myself. Perhaps this was a kind of liberation, a painful but necessary one. The next morning, I packed my bags. Mark watched me in silence. As I pulled my suitcase to the door, he finally spoke. Where will you go?" "I'm going home," I replied, without turning back. "Which home?" "My parents' house. The place where I truly belong." I opened the door and stepped out. The bright morning sun was dazzling. I took a deep breath of the fresh air. It was all over. I wondered if life would give me a chance to start again, a chance to find real happiness, a happiness free from lies and manipulation. When I walked out of room 404, suitcase in hand, I thought it was truly over. I would go back to my parents' house, start a new life, and leave the painful memories of my husband's family behind. But life always has unexpected turns, and the drama of Helen's family had one final, surprisingly bitter act. Just as I stepped out of the elevator, ready to check out, I heard a desperate cry from the direction of the stairwell. "Help! Somebody help me!" The voice was weak, but familiar. It was Helen. I froze. A bad feeling washed over me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to just walk away. She had caused me so much pain. She didn't deserve my concern. But another part of me, my basic human conscience, wouldn't let me. She was an elderly woman, and she was in trouble. I rushed toward the stairwell. Pushing open the partially ajar door, I was met with a shocking sight. Helen was sprawled on the landing between the 3rd and 4th floors. She was clutching her chest, her face pale and her lips blue, gasping for breath. It looked like she was having a heart attack. "Helen!" I ran to her side and knelt down. "Helen, what's wrong?" "Try to breathe slowly." She looked at me, her eyes stripped of their usual sharpness, filled only with fear and helplessness. She tried to speak, but only choked sounds came out. I knew the situation was critical. I immediately called 911. While waiting, I tried to administer first aid based on what little I knew. I loosened her collar and positioned her as comfortably as I could. "Don't be scared, Helen. The ambulance is on its way. You're going to be okay," I said, taking her cold hand in mine. A few minutes later, the resort's medical team arrived. They quickly put her on a stretcher and rushed her to the on-site clinic. I ran after them, my mind in a turmoil. Why was she here? Why was this happening now? The doctor concluded that Helen had suffered a massive heart attack. Her condition was critical, and she needed to be transferred to a major hospital immediately. "Who is the patient's family?" the doctor asked. Just then, Mark arrived, his face ashen. I'm her son. You need to handle the admission procedures for your mother right away. We're arranging for an ambulance transfer," the doctor said. Mark stood there trembling, completely lost. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. I sighed. No matter how much I hated them, I couldn't abandon someone in a life-or-death situation. I stepped forward. "I'll take care of it." I quickly filled out the necessary paperwork and paid the initial hospital fees. Mark just watched, a look of utter disbelief on his face. He probably couldn't comprehend that the woman he and his family had tried to destroy was now the one saving his mother's life. In the ambulance, I sat beside Helen, holding her hand. She had lost consciousness, her breathing shallow. Looking at her wrinkled, aged face, I felt a strange mix of emotions. The hatred was gone, replaced by a sense of pity. Here was a woman who had lived her whole life in calculation and jealousy, only to have the daughter-in-law she despised be the only one by her side in her moment of crisis. Where were the children she loved and defended so fiercely? At the hospital, Helen was taken directly into the emergency room. Mark and I sat in the waiting area. The silence was deafening, broken only by the ticking of the wall clock. "Clara," Mark began, breaking the silence. "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," I replied coolly. "I didn't do it for you or for her. I did it because my conscience wouldn't let me watch someone die." Mark lowered his head, saying nothing more. He knew there was nothing left to say between us. Hours later, the doctor came out. He informed us that Helen was out of immediate danger, but would need to remain in the hospital for monitoring. We both breathed a sigh of relief. That night, I stayed at the hospital to look after Helen. Mark said he needed to go back to the resort to sort things out with Jessica. I didn't ask for details. I knew their family had a massive mess to clean up. In the quiet hospital room, it was just me and Helen. She was still unconscious. I sat beside her, peeling an apple. Suddenly, she stirred and opened her eyes. She looked at me, her gaze no longer sharp, just tired and weak. "Water," she whispered. I quickly poured a glass, helped her sit up, and carefully gave her small sips. After she drank, she looked at me, her voice trembling. "Why? Why did you save me?" "Because you are my husband's mother," I answered simply. "And because you are a human being." Helen fell silent. After a long moment, she began to cry. Hot tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. "I was wrong, Clara. I was so wrong. I treated you so horribly. I don't deserve your forgiveness." She sobbed like a child. I didn't say anything, just quietly handed her a tissue. I didn't know if I could forgive her. The wounds she had inflicted were too deep. But one thing was certain. The play her family had staged was truly over. Not with revenge, not with legal justice, but with these belated tears of regret. I wondered if this remorse was genuine, or just another performance, a final act to grasp at the last shreds of humanity she had left. Over the next few days, I put everything on hold to care for Helen at the hospital. Her recovery was slow. The heart attack had left severe complications. She could no longer walk and needed assistance with everything. The once powerful, sharp-tongued woman was now a frail, helpless old lady confined to a hospital bed. Mark visited occasionally, but he would only stand by the door for a moment before leaving. He was busy trying to manage the legal fallout for Jessica. Charges had been filed against her for defamation and conspiracy. While she might avoid jail time, a criminal record would ruin her future. Their family was in the process of selling their city home to pay for legal fees and damages. The castle they had built on pretense and money had finally crumbled. During those days in the hospital, Helen and I had conversations we'd never had in 6 years. There were no more criticisms or veiled insults, no more calculated defenses, just two people, stripped bare, facing each other. One afternoon, as I was feeding her some soup, she suddenly grabbed my hand, her voice weak. "Clara, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it, Helen? What happened?" "With Jessica. It wasn't entirely her fault." I froze. "What do you mean?" Helen sighed, her gaze distant. "It's true she was jealous of you, but I was the one who planted those wicked ideas in her head," she began to confess. "She told me she had disliked me from the moment I married her son. Not because I wasn't a good person, but because I was too good, too capable. My success and independence made her feel threatened. She was used to being the most powerful woman in the family, used to everyone depending on her. My arrival had disrupted that order. "I was jealous of you, Clara," she admitted, her voice bitter. "I couldn't accept that my daughter-in-law was more successful than my own son. I felt like I was losing control. So, I always found ways to put you down, to prove that I was still the one in charge." She told me how she had constantly badmouthed me to Jessica, feeding her ideas that I was stealing the family's attention, that I looked down on her. She stoked the embers of jealousy already present in Jessica's heart, fanning them into a fire of hatred. "I turned her into a monster just to satisfy my own selfishness," she said, tears streaming down her face. "The plan to frame you, that was my idea too. I thought if I could just ruin your reputation, you would be forced out of this house, and everything would go back to the way it was." I sat in stunned silence. The truth was more horrific than I could have imagined. The true mastermind, the one pulling all the strings, wasn't Jessica. It was the mother-in-law I was currently taking care of. A chaotic mix of anger, pity, and disgust churned inside me. "What about Mark?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Did he know about this?" Helen shook her head. "No. Mark is weak, but he's not a bad person. I kept it from him. I knew if he found out, he would never have agreed. So that was it. My husband was just a coward, not truly evil, but his cowardice had still contributed to this tragedy." "Now that you've told me all this, aren't you afraid I'll hate you even more?" I asked. Helen looked at me, her eyes pleading. "I'm not afraid of you hating me. I'm afraid that if I don't tell you, I'll die without being able to close my eyes. Clara, can you forgive me? I know I don't deserve it, but—" She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I looked at the weeping woman before me, my heart empty. Forgiveness. Could I forgive her? She had destroyed my marriage and nearly ruined my life. How could I possibly forgive that? But as I looked into her tear-filled, aged eyes, at the helpless fragility of a person on the edge of death, my heart softened. What good would holding on to hatred do? It would only weigh down my own soul. She had paid a price. Her whole family had paid a price. Perhaps that was enough. "Don't cry anymore," I said softly. "It's all in the past. You need to rest. Your health is what's most important now." I didn't say I forgave her, but I didn't say I didn't. I simply chose to let the past lie. Perhaps that was the best thing for both of us. In the following days, Helen never brought up the past again. She quietly allowed me to care for her. Sometimes, I would catch her looking at me with an expression of gratitude mixed with shame. Our relationship was no longer that of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. It was something more complex, the relationship between a perpetrator and her victim. I wondered if she would truly change once she recovered, or if this was just a moment of weakness brought on by her illness. A week later, Helen was discharged. But she couldn't return to her luxurious suburban house. It had been seized and was being prepared for auction. She had to go back to a cramped, old apartment in a rougher part of the city, the very place she had spent her life trying to escape. Mark came to pick her up. He looked at me hesitantly. "Clara, maybe you could come home with me and Mom." "Home to where?" I asked calmly. "Our home." "We don't have a home anymore, Mark," I said, without a trace of sentimentality. "The divorce papers are still on the desk. Sign them and send them to my lawyer." Mark said nothing, just silently helped Helen into the car. I watched their backs as they left, one old, one young, both looking lost and lonely. I didn't feel triumph, only a deep sadness. A family that should have been a source of love and support had been torn apart by jealousy and selfishness. A few days later, I received the signed divorce papers. My 6-year marriage was officially over. I felt a strange sense of relief, as if a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I began my new life. I didn't move back in with my parents. I wanted my own space to heal. I rented a cozy little apartment and started looking for a new job. With my experience and skills, I quickly landed a position as a lead architect at a major firm. The new job, new environment, and new colleagues helped me slowly leave the past behind. Through Maya, I occasionally heard news about my ex-husband's family. Jessica's case went to trial, and she received a year of probation for criminal defamation, a light sentence, but the criminal record was a permanent stain on her future. Trevor, having cooperated with the police, received a fine. I heard he had changed his ways after the incident, no longer the reckless party boy. As for Helen, her health continued to decline after moving back to the old apartment. The emotional shock and change in living conditions were too much for her. Mark had to quit his job to take care of her full-time. The once dapper, successful man now looked old and haggard. One evening, on my way home from work, I ran into him. He was standing at a bus stop, holding a bag of medication, looking exhausted. He saw me, hesitated, then walked over. "Hi, Clara," he said, his voice raspy. "Hi, Mark," I replied politely. My mom isn't doing well," he said, looking at the ground. She misses you." "I'm sorry, I can't visit," I said firmly. "I think it's for the best, for both me and her." Mark fell silent. We stood there amidst the bustling city, once the closest of people, now strangers with nothing to say. Are you doing okay?" he finally asked. "I'm doing very well," I answered honestly. "Work is great, and life is good." That's great," he said, his voice catching slightly. The bus arrived. "Well, I have to go. Mom's waiting for her medicine." He got on the bus without looking back. I stood there, watching the bus disappear into traffic. A vague sadness washed over me, not because I still loved him, but out of regret. Regret for a love that was once beautiful. Regret for 6 years of my youth, but I quickly pushed the feeling away. The past was the past. I turned and walked away as the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and red. I knew a new day was about to begin, a day without him, without his family, with only me and my own life. Several months later, on a Sunday morning, I received a call from an unknown number. "Hello, is this Clara?" It was a young woman's voice. "Yes, this is she." "Who's calling?" It's Jessica." I froze. "Jessica, why was she calling me? What do you want?" I asked coldly. "I know it's too late for apologies," her voice trembled. "But my mom, she passed away this morning." I was stunned. Helen was gone. Though the hatred had faded, the news still shocked me. "When?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "This morning." "She went peacefully," Jessica said, then broke into sobs. "Clara, before she passed, she told me I had to call you. She said she was so sorry for everything. She hoped you could come see her one last time." I didn't answer. I just quietly hung up. I sat on my sofa, staring out at the clear blue sky. The woman who had caused me so much pain was finally gone. Should I go? Part of me didn't want to see those people ever again. But another part urged me to go. After all, she was my ex-husband's mother. It was the decent thing to do. And perhaps it was the final act needed to close this chapter completely. In the end, I decided to go. I asked Maya to come with me. "Are you sure?" she asked, worried. "What if they try something?" "It's fine," I said calmly. "I'm not the naive lamb I used to be. I'm just going to pay my respects." The old apartment building was draped in a somber atmosphere. When they saw me, the neighbors fell silent. Their eyes filled with curiosity. I ignored them and walked with Maya into the small, crowded apartment. All of Mark's relatives were there, dressed in black. Mark stood beside the casket, looking gaunt and much older. He seemed surprised to see me, then quickly looked away. I walked to the front, accepted an incense stick, and bowed 3 times. Looking at Helen's photograph on the altar, I felt a strange emotion. The woman in the picture looked so gentle and kind, a stark contrast to the sharp, cruel woman I remembered. Just then, Jessica emerged from a back room. She was thin and pale, the old arrogance gone. She walked up to me and bowed her head. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. I simply nodded. As I turned to leave, she stopped me. "Clara, wait." She handed me a small, old wooden box. "Mom told me to give this to you." I took the box, surprised. "What is it?" "I don't know. She just said it was something she owed you." I opened it. Inside was a passbook for a savings account and a yellowed, handwritten letter. I unfolded the letter. Helen's handwriting was shaky. "Clara, my daughter." Those 2 words made my eyes blur. "By the time you read this, I will be gone. I don't have much to leave you, only this savings account with the money I saved my whole life. Please accept it as a belated wedding gift I never gave you. I know money can't make up for the pain I caused, but I hope it can help you have a happy new life. Don't be like me, living a life full of jealousy and regret." I folded the letter, tears streaming down my face. I looked at Jessica, then at Mark. They were both looking at me, their eyes filled not with resentment, but with shame and remorse. I placed the passbook back in the box and handed it back to Jessica. "I can't accept this. Use this money to give your mother a proper funeral." Then, I turned and walked away without looking back. I had forgiven her, and that was the last thing I could do. From that moment on, all debts were paid, all grievances settled, left to dissipate like smoke. After the funeral, I thought all ties with my ex-husband's family were finally severed. I was ready to close that chapter and start anew. But fate, it seemed, had one more test for me. A week later, Mark called me at work. "Clara, can we meet? There's something I need to talk to you about." His voice was serious. I hesitated, but something told me this would be our final conversation, the one needed to truly end things. We met at a quiet coffee shop. He looked worn down, the stylish confidence of his former self completely gone. "Thank you for coming," he said. "What did you want to talk about?" I asked directly. He looked down at his coffee. "Clara, I know I have no right to say this, but I have to. I've been thinking about everything. I was wrong. I was wrong to let my mother and sister treat you that way. I was wrong to be silent. I was a terrible husband, a coward." "Do these words mean anything now?" I asked, my voice flat. "Yes," he said firmly. "They mean something to me. I need to say them to face myself, and I need you to know I really did love you." "You loved me?" I scoffed. "You loved me while you watched your family tear me apart? Don't use the word love, Mark. You poison it." "I know," he said, his voice full of pain. "I know you won't believe me, but it's true. I loved you from the moment I met you. I loved your intelligence, your strength, but those very things started to scare me. I wasn't confident enough to be your equal. I let my mother's and sister's jealousy get to me. I became someone even I despise." I was silent. It was the first time I had ever heard him analyze himself so honestly. "After my mother passed," he continued, "I read the letter she left for you. I understood everything. She regretted it, Clara, and so do I." He pushed a folder across the table. "These are the deeds to all the property my family has left, the apartment and some land. Jessica and I have decided we're signing it all over to you." I was stunned. "Why? To atone for your sins?" "No," he shook his head. "Nothing can atone for what I did. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. You lost so much because of us. This should have been yours." I looked at the folder, then at him. I didn't need it, but the gesture showed he had truly changed. "I don't want it, Mark. Keep it and take care of yourself and Jessica. I don't need anyone's charity." "This isn't charity," he pleaded. "It's restitution. Please, Clara, take it. Let me have this one small piece of peace." We sat in silence. I had once hated him with every fiber of my being, but looking at the broken man before me, the hate was gone. "Mark," I said finally, "the past is gone. You don't need to compensate me for anything. Just live a good life. That's all you can do." I stood up to leave. "Clara," he called out. I paused. Can I see you sometimes?" Just as a friend? I was quiet for a moment. Then I gave a small nod. Okay. I walked away, not knowing if it was the right decision, but knowing that forgiving him was also about forgiving myself. It was about letting the past truly rest, so I could finally begin my new life, whole and unburdened. 1 year later. It's a bright weekend morning in Chicago. I'm standing in my new home, a penthouse apartment at the top of a skyscraper overlooking the city and the vast expanse of Lake Michigan. I bought this place with my own money, a symbol of my hard work, my freedom, and my independence. I am no longer the woman I was. I am Clara, a successful architect, strong, confident, and finally, at peace with myself. The doorbell rings. It's Maya, my best friend, holding a huge bouquet of flowers. "Congratulations on the new place, boss lady," she says, giving me a tight hug. "This view is insane." We sit on the balcony, sipping tea. "So, how are you, really?" she asks. "Good," I say, and I mean it. Really good. Work is fulfilling. Life is calm. "And him?" Maya asks gently. "We see each other sometimes," I say, "for coffee, as friends. That's all." "You really forgave him?" "Not completely, I admit. But I've let go of the hate. It was too heavy to carry. After our last meeting, Mark did change. He sold the properties and used the money to help Jessica get back on her feet and donated the rest to charity. He never tried to get me back. He accepted that we were over. Our occasional coffee meetings are pleasant, like catching up with an old acquaintance. It's the best ending we could have hoped for. My phone buzzes. It's a message from an unknown number. "Hi, Clara. My name is Sarah. I'm an architecture student. I read about your story online, and I just wanted to say you're a huge inspiration. You make me want to be a strong, successful woman just like you." I read the message, and a warmth spreads through my chest. "See?" Maya says, as if reading my mind. "You've become a symbol for so many women, Clara." I smile. Maybe that was the purpose of all the pain. It didn't break me. It forged me into someone new, someone who could not only survive, but could also inspire strength in others. I look out at the horizon. A new day is dawning. There will be more challenges, but I am no longer afraid. I have my friends, my career, and my ideals. And most importantly, I have found myself again. The sun is rising, not just over the city, but in my soul.